Hey, my friends, Sleepy Reader here. How you doing? I got two hands. I've been wanting to do for quite a while now, or been thinking in my head vaguely, I should say, of doing a video about a bunch of Tom King books together. And I was thinking of calling them, for some reason, The Beautiful Room is Empty. And that's a title that I always liked quite a bit. It comes to me by way of a autobiography by a famous gay writer named Edmund Wilson that I read back in the 80s, I guess. Late 80s, maybe. And I really liked the title. I wasn't quite sure how it applied to the book, actually. I don't think he was saying The Beautiful Room was homosexuality. Maybe it was life. Recently I looked it up, and he got the quote from some letter that Kafka wrote, and I guess Franz Kafka. And I guess Kafka was using the term the beautiful room to mean that each person is like a beautiful room and you can never connect. So I guess the room is empty because other people can't enter the room of your life. You're always alone. But I'm kind of taking it a different way anyway. I think the beautiful room is maybe creativity, maybe it's life. I don't know. I just like that term. So, and for some reason, when I was reading, actually, I think it hit me when I was reading a mix of the War of Joke and Riddles and then switching over to Mr. Miracle. Somehow I just thought, the beautiful room is empty. Or is the beautiful room empty? Maybe the beautiful room is empty. I'm not sure. I'm a little puzzled by the Tom King work here. I really liked the vision, and I really understood that. I really liked his work on Grayson with a co-writer, and I wonder if his Batman would be better if he had a co-writer, maybe the same co-writer, Tim Seeley. But anyway, I wanted to kind of explore this, and then Kamandi came out, the Kamandi issue number 9 of the Kamandi Challenge, written by Tom King, and it all took place in one room. So even though it's all kind of out of order, I think I'm going to start in this episode of The Beautiful Room looking at these two issues, Batman Brave in the Mold, number 23, and Kamandi Challenge, number 9. Two standalone, I almost put that in quotes, because I suppose both of them connect up to larger narratives in some fashion, but two standalone stories by Tom King. In the Kamandi Challenge, we are hit right away by I'm sorry, it's kind of glary around here. I thought the lighting would be better. So let me see if I can slightly tilt my tripod. We are hit by starting with a black space that slowly evolves into this kind of shutters opening, and a quote from someone named Blaise Pascal. I have, to my knowledge, never actually read Pascal. I've heard that name. I'm not even sure what he's best known for. For some reason, I want to think he's a scientist, but maybe he's a philosopher. Now, clearly, the quote here from Pascal is about life. As I know not whence I came, I know not whither I go. And that's kind of, I guess, the existential dilemma of we're here in the middle of life and we don't know what it means. People who have faith, who have God, and feel that they know the Word of God don't have that existential dilemma, seemingly. But without that, we all have this existential dilemma. And he died in August 1662, so a long time ago. I at least take that as sort of a quick explication of the existential dilemma. And then Kamandi wakes up in this room. A really cool thing about this issue is that it's all in black and white. And that's kind of a nice change and certainly goes well with the grim feel of this issue. And it's a very interesting quality to the black and white by Kevin Eastman with Freddie Williams. So I don't know who did how much, but it evokes the early black and white work that Kevin Eastman is so famous for with the Turtles. So anyway, Kamandi wakes up in a room that seems to have nothing to do with the end of the last issue where he was swallowed by some behemoth, like being, like Jonah being swallowed by the whale. But he finds himself in a room. And basically, a bunch of other sentient animals are in the room, like this elephant and others. And one by one, every few days, I guess, or many days in between, this giant robot comes in, grabs one of them, drags them out of the room. They don't know where the robot's dragging them, what the purpose is, where they are, what happens after they leave the room. There's even one character, a turtle, who says he's been in the room. Where is he? This turtle has been in the room for, what's he say, like 72 years. 72 years been in the room watching other people arrive and then get dragged out. And he wants to get dragged out, and he doesn't get dragged out. Eventually, though, everyone gets dragged out. And, here we have day 210. And I think on day 297, 237. But anyway, nearly a year has passed. And finally, Kamandi is dragged out. And that's the end of the story. But it ends with a quote from Jack Kirby, which is very different than Blaise Pascal, in my opinion. Jack Kirby says, "I know the names of the stars. I know how near or far the heavenly bodies are from our own planet. I know our own place in the universe. I can feel its vastness inside of me. I began to realize with each passing fact that a wonderful and awesome place, what a wonderful and awesome place the universe is." And that helped me in comics because I was looking for the awesome, Jack Kirby, and then it gives his dates of birth and death. Jack Kirby was looking for the awesome. And there's this elephant character in here who keeps trying to say that it's awesome. And so we got a variety of details and interesting bits of dialogue. "It's okay, friend. Everything's fine. Herbert, come on. Why you gotta lie to him like that? It's not a lie. Don't worry. It's not a lie." People are telling you life is great. Life isn't great. I assume this is all the big metaphor for life. But is it a story? Is it part of the Kamandi story? I really don't think so. We have an interesting scene where Kamandi reviews everything that's happened to him so far in Kamandi Challenge. And, excuse me, I think it's this one. And then near the end he says, "It all just leads to the brink of something horrible. And over that brink you go over, and you're back to everything. Basically saying you get dragged from one room. What it really is, the drag where you go, I bet it's just another room. Somewhere else, you're waiting. So it's kind of like, evokes Waiting for Godot and Sartre's No Exit and some Ionesco play I can't remember. And I'm sorry that my references are all probably stuff I read in high school and college. So from the late 70s, early 80s, stuff they were pushing in college and high school English classes or philosophy classes. I have to say I took one semester of philosophy in college, and it was the intro to philosophy, and all they did is introduce each new philosophy, a major philosophical idea, show the faults in it, the ways you could disprove it, and then moved on to the next person. So talk about an empty, beautiful room of thought, I suppose. So is this a statement about life? Is this a statement about storytelling that is just dragging the character from one situation to another, and then you get to the brink of something, and then you're dragged into something else, I suppose. there's no joy or relationships here. It's just horror, existential horror, I guess. Is it depression? It sounds a lot like depression. Is Tom King just giving us beautifully, artfully created expressions of depression, of hopelessness and despair? Or is it awesome? I mean, Jack Kirby ends with a quote of awesomeness, but I'm not sure if Tom King believes that at all. Or if he does, is he unable to touch it, unable to express it himself? Anyway, those are my reactions, at least that I can think of at the moment, to this very unusual and unique and really cool, but really depressing issue of Kamandi Challenge. And it should be noted in terms of a team player telling a story. He ignores the story before it. He leaves the person with the next story to tell what happens when Kamandi gets dragged out, with nothing really exciting or fun to play with. But there you are. It's high art. So then going back a ways to Batman number 23, Brave and the Mold. I'm not sure what month this came out. Does it say July 2017 is the cover date? I assume it came out a month or two before then. Feels like quite a while. I had jumped off Batman. I felt when I was reading the earlier Tom King Batman that there was no Batman there, that I just wasn't interested, so I dropped it. And then I heard that he was doing the Swamp Thing, and I was really interested in how Tom King would do the Swamp Thing, so I jumped on this issue. And the fascinating thing, it starts in kind of an empty room, that someone who looks amazingly like, he looks a lot like Alan Moore, who is not the creator of the Swamp Thing, but he's the person who's done the most famous run on the Swamp Thing, and also famous for the 9-panel grid. Also clearly as a very sort of formalistic, planned out, but artful and layered writer, clearly a huge influence on Tom King. And I heard Tom King on in a podcast mention that, yes, they purposefully made this look like Alan Moore, and that was their little tribute to him. Now, in their tribute to him, he's this nut job singing this song, and I don't know if these are the real lyrics of the Wild Irish Rose. I'm not familiar with the lyrics of that. I should have looked that up before doing this video, but I'm a total amateur. Anyway, here we have sort of Alan Moore sitting around in his underwear in basically an empty room, and he gets shot twice in the head and he's dead. He keeps singing for a minute after he dies. And then we get Batman and Commissioner Gordon. This is such an important crime. Of course, that's the fiction of comics, of Batman comics, that Commissioner Gordon is involved in every crime. But they're discussing the crime, and Commissioner Gordon's filling Batman in. It was on the 84th floor, and this, we learned this was a guy who just stayed in his room all the time, except he went out to drink at night, and during the day he would occasionally go out to mail off letters. And we see the Swamp Thing make his arrival. And we learn that this guy was the Swamp Thing's real father, that the father, Holland, who Swamp Thing took his name for, was his stepfather. I don't know if that's canon or not. I've read a lot of Swamp Thing, but not all of it, and I've certainly forgotten a lot that I've read. In the more recent years of my reading, I haven't remembered any mention of his family background or anything like that. Nice, great details of Commissioner Gordon kind of getting surprised by the, it's like, Batman, don't you know, aren't you going to do anything about this monster behind us? And then, oh, okay, I guess you two are previously acquainted. Great touches. So we learned that it was his father. Then we have, I don't want to go blow by blow on this, but I do want to mention, there's something going on here, because we hear Batman and Swamp Thing talking, but we have a whole page of just watching Alfred looking sad, cleaning up. Is he sad about the mess, or is he sad about life, his life, as he said about Bruce Wayne's life, I don't know. And even in this amazing double-page spread of Bruce Wayne, obviously letting everyone know who he is, and Swamp Thing sitting in no doubt one of the many studies in Wayne Manor, and Alfred sweeping up around them. And your eye does go from, I think, from Swamp Thing to Bruce Wayne to Alfred, but it may depend. But Alfred sweeping up is a major part of the picture. In fact, we get even a motion line that kind of catches the eye. And we get some philosophical talk from Swamp Thing about, basically you start as light, which creates something in the ground, a weed maybe, which becomes sugar, which becomes consumed by his grandmother in a salad, which eventually, becomes part of the particles that become Lloyd McGinn, his real father. And then he'll eventually be he'd be buried and decomposed. So he's part of the cycle of life. And meanwhile, we get this very strange sort of tea that he's having where he's drinking out of a flower that he creates the juices himself and everything. And Bruce Wayne says, dust to dust then, and Swamp Thing says, sorry, I'm not getting it all in the frame. Swamp Thing says, no, not dust to dust. This would mean nothing changes. But life, death, all of it is the same. All of it is change. So life is changed. The process of life is changed. Things are transmuted from one thing to another. So that's an interesting, philosophical claim, I guess. Again, you have to take it all. My interpretation's all with a grain of salt because I only took introductory philosophy in college. Then we get a Kite Man scene where Batman kind of scares the living daylights out of Kite Man to get him to tell, basically to get him to confess that he sold one of his kites to a pawnbroker. But we get a lot of clever visual invention, and this net shot out by the Swamp Thing as a way to stop their fall. It's, again, a lot of superhero-ish stuff where we have to believe there's time during this fall for Batman and Kite Man to have this conversation. But it's wonderfully entertaining and cool. The colors are a really wonderful use of the rich kind of modern colors you can use here. I especially love the Swamp Thing, who's singing the same Wild Irish Rose song. I think maybe the lyrics are changing from before. I even like the contrast between the background blues and his orange word balloon. And the color is done by Mitch Gerads himself. Then we meet the pawnbroker, which leads us to the weapons dealer, who Batman just seeing this tooth on his necklace leads him to the person who really did it. This mercenary named the Headhunter, who shoots his victims in the head twice, always twice. And I should also say there's lots of clever and dryly funny stuff going on. Like, he's currently entering the Gotham Museum of Art, and Batman gives him a look. And Swamp Thing says, "The grass told me." And after a beat, Batman says, "We'll take my car." So, and we got the funny scene in the car where he says, Swamp Thing says, "Why do you need a car?" "I don't know." "Why do you need a body?" "Heh," says Swamp Thing. That's a good question. Why does Swamp Thing need a body? We all need our props, I guess. And Swamp Thing's prop is his body. And then we meet the Headhunter, who's this art aficionado who's, doing a lecture to himself about a Turner painting. And Turner is a painter, I think, that for Americans is not that familiar. I think he's really well known in England. I never heard about him until I went to a museum in England where they had a big Turner exhibit once when I visited my sister in England and skipped off to London for a day to look at museums. So anyway, and maybe there's, some philosophy about art, and we hear why did the cannibal kill that guy, Lloyd, whatever his name was now. I can't remember his full name. He was singing at a bar named Mulligan's, but I think his name was kind of like Mulligan. Sorry to waste your time. Lloyd Bernard McGinn. So it's all very very Scottish, I guess. And we get even close-ups of this Turner painting. I don't know if it's a real Turner painting or something like a Turner painting created by Mick Gerard. If it is a Turner painting, there may be some, I don't know, there may be some copyright things or ownership by museums. I know art ownership is very complicated. I know that because my mother once represented a famous European artist in the American market. Anyway, so then Swamp Thing goes ahead and kills his father's killer. While quoting the song again. And Batman's really upset. I helped you. You used me. You just basically used me to kill him, and I have no answers. And I also wanted to know about this cycle of life you were talking about, and change and light and weed and the birth, the damn change. Where did that go, says Batman. And Swamp Thing is just like, I didn't ever open his letters. My father, you don't understand. And Batman is, your father? I don't understand. What do you think I am? So normally I would just summarize a story. And I'm sorry that I'm just reading bits of it to you because that can get tedious. But I guess my point is, I don't know what's going on here. What's the point of it? It's full of interesting details. Swamp Thing kills his father's killer, and that's it. And Swamp Thing is almost this, he's this force of nature, but he's also just this source of odd, sad whimsy or something. And Batman is just really frustrated and pissed off, and shouts coward at the Swamp Thing. So what happened here? I don't know. I don't know what happened here. It was a beautifully constructed piece of comic art. It was a beautiful room that I can't seem to enter. No one complained about this. Everyone said they liked it, and it was kind of cool. But did anyone understand what happened, what the point was? Why did Tom King and Mitch Gerard kill the Swamp Thing? Kill the Swamp Thing's father. Why did they kill Alan Moore? Isn't Alan Moore like the stepfather, and Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson are the father and mother, I guess? It's just this jumble of intriguing stuff. Who is Tom King? What kind of stories is he telling us? I don't know. I probably won't have any more answers, but I'm going to look at more Tom King comics in probably 2 more parts. So thanks for letting me drag you through this. And maybe we will revisit, I'm hoping we will revisit the Batman Swamp Thing, Tom King version of the Batman Swamp Thing relationship. I know there is an anniversary or tribute to Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson type of comic coming up that will include a story by Tom King, not drawn by Gerard's, drawn by, I think, David Finch maybe, or Jason Fabok, one of those two, who seem a less obvious choice for the Swamp Thing. But I look forward to seeing if there are more clues hidden in that. And I will be back. I think the next one I'll talk about Mr. Miracle, and then I'll talk about the game of jokes and riddles and try to explore this empty room.